This video is my reading and analysis of this article on the Economic Times. I am open to any feedback and mutual discussion on this. India should withdraw from all negotiations with US, engage with them like other countries. GTRI. India should withdraw from trade negotiations with the US and adopt a firm stance similar to countries like China and Canada. Economic think tank GTRI warns against yielding to US trade demands, advising India to counter misinformation and avoid concession in sensitive sectors, particularly agriculture. India should withdraw from all negotiations with the US and prepare to engage with the Trump administration in the same way as countries like China and Canada are doing. So, first of all, we have to understand who is behind GTRI, who is really funding GTRI, and what do they want, because the advices which these think tanks provide are opportunistic. They want the government to do what is beneficial for them, not necessarily what is beneficial for the country. It's a very generic advice to give to someone that follow what everybody else is also doing. Someone might be benefiting from it. Some people who are backing GTRI might be against Donald Trump and his policies in the US itself, or maybe associated with his opposite political party. We never know of those things. So we have to take this advice with a pinch of salt. But is it really an advice or a suggestion? The GTRI founder Ajay Srivastava said that the US is exerting heavy pressure on India to accept trade demands that largely favor American interests. US President Donald Trump and his officials have criticized India mostly by using incorrect data, he said. So they are using incorrect data. Trump is insulting India publicly using wrong data. No balanced outcome is possible in such circumstances. India should withdraw from all negotiations and prepare to deal with them like other countries are doing. Trump is insulting India publicly using wrong data. No balanced outcome is possible in such circumstances. India should withdraw from all negotiations and prepare to deal with them like other countries are doing, Srivastava said. Against US tariff, China and Canada have announced retaliatory measures. So what do tariff do is it will increase the price for the consumers in that country itself, and so that will decrease the competitive power of the product or the company selling those products. So actually it comes down to, are there other competitive products in that segment? Suppose if you are selling a car, and let's say for Indian cars, for Maruti, for Tata, and for Mahindra, if these companies are selling any cars in the US, and if US introduces a tariff on that, the price of those cars will go up in the US. American consumers will have to pay that tariff. So will they buy these Tata or M&M cars at a higher price, or will they shift to some other cars? It could be US cars like Ford, General Motors, or Chrysler, or it could be Japanese and Korean cars like Toyota, Honda, Kia, any of those cars. Ultimately, I don't think there are a lot of Indian cars in the US. Who in the US is buying Indian car anyway? But what will happen in this case is, because there is a lot of competition in that segment, Indian cars will become less competitive, and people, even those who are buying Tata or M&M or Maruti cars, will have a higher propensity of shifting to some other brand, as the price differential between these two will come down. On secondary thought, Tata might be selling GLR cars, Jaguar and Land Rover cars in the US. Those are already luxury products and their price might go up further, thereby decreasing its competitiveness. So I really don't understand why Tata bought Jaguar and Land Rover, except that ego thing. It doesn't serve Indian companies any purpose. Jaguar and Land Rover were both dying brands in the West itself. By buying those near bankrupt companies, Tata has taken a dead asset on its book. Tata has really taken a dead asset on its book. So what this Ajay Srivastava is suggesting is that we should not accept those tariffs and we should impose retaliatory tariffs so that American goods become expensive in India as well. So Indian consumer will have lesser propensity of buying expensive American goods and will rather buy their competitive products. Those could be Indian or those could be coming from other countries as well. The only thing here is, are those products in a competitive segment? See, for this example, for car, there are many different brands coming from different countries, so you can pick and choose. But if a company or if there is a product which doesn't have any substitute, you have to take that product and you have to take it from that. You have to buy that brand products itself. Then it will just increase the cost of that. The company will be able to easily transfer that cost to the citizens of your country, and you will be paying that tariff. In the earlier case, when there is competitiveness, you will have to reduce your profits to sell the product. Against US tariff, China and Canada have announced retaliatory measures. On Friday, Trump claimed that India had agreed to cut tariff on American imports after his administration exposed what he called unfair trade practices. Exposed within inverted comma. Well, basically, what Trump is doing is trying to bully India and set an example in front of the world. Other countries he has tried to bully have all answered back in loud noises, even though they might have accepted his claims, they might have accepted his demands, but they are also fighting back. It could be just in words, but they are putting up a face, and India is playing it looks like so far that India is playing a different game. They don't want to have a public spat with America. They want to work with them and have a deal, and Trump is taking advantage of that, trying to bully India in the public to get a upper hand in the negotiations. This is patently incorrect and intended to pressurize India. India's silence is baffling and India needs to counter with facts. Whole world is watching as Trump and his officials belittle India every day. So this is exactly what I said. He is actually belittling India because he wants to set an example in front of the world that I am the boss, you rather fall in line or I will take strict action against you. But unlike other countries, India is not an ally of the US. The countries like Canada and Western European countries and even other European, even Eastern European countries except China are now all in the American group, in the American lobby, and they need America for its own protection and sovereignty. India, unlike those countries, do not need US for its sovereignty. We have actually fought US more than we have we have fought US, not in terms of military wars, but in terms of ideology. India has been more associated with the Soviet and communist kind of ideology till 1991, and after the fall of Soviet, India opened its market, but only slightly. We haven't opened it fully. We don't have a free market economy, and so India has not been allied to the US, and yet we have progressed so much. There is no need for us to cave into Trump's demand and give us our sovereignty in a way and hope that it brings progress, because I don't think it will bring. It hasn't helped. None of the countries allied to US are stronger today than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago. UK is not stronger, it's much more weaker. It has a weak military, it has a weak economy, it has a very fragile economy. A recession could completely destroy the life of vast majority of Europeans. Same goes for France, Germany, Italy. All of these are G7 nations, but they are still have a very weak economy, very weak military. They have aging population. Same with Canada, same with Japan, same with Korea. Tomorrow, if there is a war between South Korea and North Korea, South Korea is totally dependent on America to save. to save it. North Korea can fight on its own. They may not have food to eat, but they have weapons to fight. So India should not give up that sovereignty that we have enjoyed so far. We are progressing on our own. The growth rate might be slow, the rate of progress might be slow, but it's sustainable what we are doing, and it's our own. If we get America's help, we may take a leapfrog for a short term benefit, but in the long term, it will hurt us. We will become an American slave country. We will become an American slave country. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has also said that India needs to open its agriculture market, emphasizing that it cannot be off the table when the country is negotiating with its largest trading partner. I'm not sure if US is our largest trading partner or not, but we don't have a very big trading with US. It's about just over $100 billion, and we have a trade surplus with them. I think we export something around $45 billion, so it's not a very big amount. And this guy Howard Lutnick has tried to bully India in India itself. He was invited to a open forum discussion by one of the media outlets in India, and he has really bullied India, and it's really shameful that no one countered his views here. Looking at that, so it was very clear that he has that rich white man syndrome, that I am better than you and I will tell you what to do and you must fall in line, otherwise you will face the punishment. That kind of attitude should not work in India. If you given now, you'd have to face their bully forever. Now's the time to stand up and say him tata bye bye. So Lutnik has also said that India needs to open its agriculture market, emphasizing that it cannot be off the table. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has also said that India needs to open its agriculture market, emphasizing that it cannot be off the table when the country is negotiating with its largest trading partner. He has pitched for a macro, large, and grand trade agreement with India and not product by product arrangement to promote bilateral trade. So I disagree with this point. I agree that India needs to open its agricultural market. No, actually, I don't. I agree that India needs to open its agricultural sector. We have a list of things which farmers can grow. They grow those and sell it to the government or governmental agency or the middleman, whichever way you want to put it. And because there's only 13, 14, 15, I think something like that, items on the list, everyone produces the exact same thing. We produce it in masses, mostly grains, and sell it to the government, who sell it to. I'm not sure of the exact infrastructure, how it goes from the middleman to the retailers, but that's the cycle. And because no one is producing agricultural products which sells for higher cost, our farmers are largely poor. The other reason of farmers being poor is a lot of farmers in the country have very small land, a very small piece of land, and irrespective of whatever you grow on that land, the quantity itself will not be enough to earn decent amount of money. So they are better off doing something else with that land, either sell either selling it and using that money to do some other business, or move into labor or job, etc. But that farm income is not going to be enough for them. According to a GTRI report, a comprehensive trade deal would open the door to US demands on not just on tariff reductions, but also on government procurement, agricultural subsidies, patent laws, and unrestricted data flows, all of which India has consistently opposed. According to a GTRI report, a comprehensive trade deal would open the doors to US demands not just on tariff reductions, but also on government procurement, agriculture, agricultural subsidies, patent laws, and unrestricted data flows, all of which India has consistently opposed. So basically, what they are saying is if you give into their demands now, next they will come for government procurement. So whatever the government is procuring from the farmers, they will raise questions on that. Some countries like Canada and China have already raised similar questions in WTO on India. They say that you cannot buy from your farmers, they have to sell in open market, so that Canadian and uh, farmers of those countries can sell in India. Farmers won't be selling it directly, but some companies or some people will procure from the farmers and bring those goods in Indian market and sell it in here. So see, that will be good for the Indian consumers, but vast majority of our population is dependent on the farm income. So we have to do something about that. We cannot increase their competition, as they already have a lot of competition. But what we really need to do is we need to increase our agricultural production. We need to increase the items which they produce and quantities which they produce and sell it in international market. That's the only way farmers can become rich. And the other thing we can do is increase our manufacturing output, and thereby pulling a lot of labor from the agricultural subsistence farming and pull a labor away from agriculture sector into the manufacturing sector, and that will reduce our dependency on the agricultural sector. So according to this report, they will come after government procurement. Then they will raise question on agricultural subsidies which the government provides to farmers. Then they will question our patent laws, and then they will ask for unrestricted data flows. India doesn't allow. I think India doesn't allow our data to be stored outside India right now, and they will ask to raise that as well, which is stupidity, to be honest. You give your data to America, China, or anyone, they will use it. Second, Trump's history of disregarding negotiated trade agreements is evident from his decision to scrap the US Mexico Canada FTA, which he himself finalized in 2019, and his imposition of 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican imports now. It suggested India consider a macro level reciprocal tariff arrangement covering over 90% of industrial goods under a zero for zero approach, where India eliminates tariff only if the US does the same. So this is what they are suggesting, is that India should ask them for a reciprocal tariff arrangement where both the countries are putting 0% tariff on each other for 90% of industrial goods, where India will eliminate its tariff if US does the same. However, agriculture, passenger cars, and other sensitive sectors must remain excluded. It said, adding India must avoid making the same mistake as the auto sector contributes to one third of manufacturing GDP. So what they are saying is, of our manufacturing component of the GDP, automobile is one third of that. I'm not sure if it's just the cars or two wheelers are included in this as well. Maybe it's including both four wheelers, two wheelers, three wheelers, everything. Citing an example, it said Australia's domestic car industry collapsed after it reduced car import duties from 45% to 5% in the late 80s. So, if the duty was 45% in Australia, cars imported from outside the country would have costed a lot more. And after the reduction of the duty, the price of those cars would have come down. That means the domestic seller would not have been able to compete with them. It would allow them an opportunity to go and sell in other countries as well. But if they are not able to reduce their cost, they would have no choice but to shut shop and move to China. India exported less than USD 13 million worth of passenger cars to the US. So our export of cars to US is $13 million. And if America increases tariff on Indian cars, India will have no impact whatsoever. On opening the agri sector, Srivastava, who has earlier served in the Department of Commerce, strongly opposed this demand, asserting that India's agriculture sector supports over 700 million people compared to less than 7 million in the US, making it a livelihood issue rather than just a trade concern. So, this is what I was saying earlier as well, that a lot of people in our country, 50% of the population of our country, are dependent on the agricultural sector. While US, there are less than 7 million people dependent on agriculture and they have a total population of around 330 million. So 10% would be 33 million. They have about 2% population dependent on the agricultural sector. But for us, it's an issue of livelihood. For them, it's an issue of profit. Opening even a few agricultural products to US imports could set a dangerous precedent, leading to increased pressure for further concessions, he said. Opening even a few agricultural products to US imports would set a dangerous precedent, leading to increased pressure for further concessions, he said. Adding tariff on top US agriculture products exports to India are already low. Tariff on top US agricultural exports to India are already low, so don't set up a dangerous precedents where you would have to decrease the tariff on other agricultural products from US in the future as well. For instance, the import tariff on almonds is rupees 35 per kg, translating to just 5% at the current import price of 700 per kg. So I don't know the long term price history of the almonds, but it says currently there's only 5% tariff on the almonds. Pistachios face a 10% tariff and ethyl alcohol only 5%. With India's total agriculture, dairy, and marine exports to the US amounting to just 5 billion US dollars, so we have agricultural export, dairy export, and marine export. Marine export basically refers to, I think, fish, shrimp, and other sea products to the US amounting to just 5 billion dollars USD. Retaliatory US tariff would not significantly harm India. It will make those products expensive in the US and less competitive in the US market, but I think we may be able to find other market for those products in that case. Retaliatory US tariff would not significantly harm India if India concedes today, more products will be added to the US list in the future. Sure. On the US allegations that India is a tariff king, he said while New Delhi does have high tariff on specific items such as 150% on wines and alcohols and 100% on the cars, the US itself imposes 350% tariff on tobacco. So India is not the tariff king, US is a tariff king. In terms of overall trade, the weighted tariff rate for US goods entering India are only 4.9% higher than what the US applies to Indian product. This is a important line here. In terms of overall trade, the weighted tariff rates for US goods entering India are only 4.9% higher than what the US applies to Indian products. So, in terms of weighted tariff, so you add up all the items which we import and export, our tariff is only 5% higher than what the US applies for Indian products. Further, he said that US officials frequently misrepresent trade figures. For example, Trump claimed that the US trade deficit with India is USD $100 billion, dollars, whereas India's official data places it under $45 billion. Dollars. Why is trade deficit an issue for us? It shouldn't be. It's an issue for America. Keep it an issue. USA's economy is $26 trillion. $100 billion is not going to make any difference for them. Here, most of their trade comes from Canada and Mexico because they are right next to each other, and a lot of companies makes in Mexico and transports it to US for the American consumers. Similarly, Canada sells oil and natural gas to America, and most of their trade comes from China, isn't it? They have an actual trade deficit with China, which will go in terms of hundreds of billions of dollars. So I don't think they will really worry about their trade deficit with India. It's a very small, insignificant amount to them. What he is really trying to do is to bully India to make an example of it for the other countries to see. And the reason this deficit exists is because Americans don't have anything which we Indians want to buy, and they don't have it as at a price which is affordable enough or which is cheap enough for us to buy. They can go and sell their products to other rich countries like Canada and UK and France. Similarly, the White House fact sheet inaccurately stated that India imposes a 100% tariff on Harley Davidson motorcycles when the actual tariff was reduced from 50% to 30% on Feb 1. It is painful, despite repeated provocations from the US, Indian government or any industry association has not countered such misinformation, Srivastava said. He added that at a time when many nations are standing up to Trump's trade policies, India must do the same, focusing on long term economic resilience rather than short term appeasement. If the US rejects 0 for 0 offer and imposes reciprocal tariff, India should respond only if necessary, as trade data suggests that accurately calculated reciprocal tariff will not hurt most industry sectors, he said. So that's all for this video.